Hi friends, I'm Jack Watson, full-time UI UX designer, illustrator, animator, connoisseur of donuts, and your host for today's Illustrator Typography Challenge. Today we're going to be exploring 3D materials, creating a type poster. It's going to be a lot of fun. Let me know in the chat what phrases we should do, something Valentine's Day themed. Before we get started, check the links right below me in the description of this video to find other challenges, our creative communities on Discord. And we've got a link to get started today. We've got a starter file in the description, but we've also got a couple of additional files in there that you're going to want to download for today's challenge. So, hopping over to Illustrator, I've got some notes off to the side, including our little diagram here for your reference if you need a refresher on working with 3D space as you're working along with us today. You might have also noticed, like I said, there were a few SBSAR files in our folder today for you as well. These are Substance Material Archive files, and they're the same files that you would get if you downloaded materials from the Substance site. But to get started, we're going to load those in. I've already got my 3D and materials window open here, but to get to that, you're going to go to Window, and it's the first one down here, 3D and materials. While you're here, you might as well open up that appearance panel. I like to turn on and off my 3D materials as we are working to kind of hide and show things to make it a little bit easier on our computers. So once we've got our 3D materials panel open, it's probably going to be open to object here, but we're going to navigate to the second tab, materials, and to import materials, we're going to go down here to add materials and graphics. Under here, it's going to open up a little drop down. We're just going to hit that add materials, that first one. We can also add single graphics or multiple graphics if we're working with decals, but for today, we're going to grab that materials. Once we're in there, you're going to navigate to where you've got those files downloaded, probably in your downloads folder here, and you're just going to import those SBSAR files here. I'm just going to grab all of them at once, hit open, and it's going to add them, if you don't see them right away, to the very bottom of your substance materials list here. If we scroll down, got this Chalky Candy Hearts material that I've made. I actually made these for you in another program. I'm going to hop over there briefly. I made these in Substance Sampler. So Substance Sampler, you can think of it like Adobe Capture for 3D materials. To just kind of keep it really simple, I'd recommend starting with a base material. I'm actually going to move my screen over here so you can see what we're talking about because I'm covering it up. You could start with a base material. You can also import your own images if you take like a photo of some fabric and you want to use that as a base material. And then down here you can add on these filters, which is where it gets really fun for me. For example, for this candy heart texture, I threw a heights blend using one of these filters over here to give it this kind of like mix of like a little bit of chalky materials, that chalky look. That height map creates that raised chalky surface. There's a ton of different options in here under these filters for different things. We're not going to be focusing on this today because there's a ton to cover. I'd recommend tuning into the 3D Bootcamp if you're interested in learning more, but I did want to point it out as an option if you're interested in creating your own materials to use in Illustrator. You can then go over to this little share icon here and you can export them out and you can import them the same way in Illustrator that I just kind of demoed for you. So let's hop back over to Illustrator. We're going to be making a type poster today, and if we have time, I'm going to create two different styles. So actually I'm going to hop over to Adobe Fonts first. So we're going to open up, I've got that link for you off to the side here, to Adobe Fonts. I've already got some picked out, but if you want to, browse and choose your own, I'm going to walk you through that process. We're going to go to all fonts here, and we're going to be working on a Valentine's Day design. So let's pick some tags over here on the side that kind of align with the look and feel that we want to go for. Valentine's Day, I'm thinking friendly. I also think that script fonts are really nice. You can either choose cursive up here, I can't talk today, or you can pick scripts down here to kind of filter the classification for the font. Just kind of scrolling through, I personally love these little mock-up previews that show you what the font kind of looks like in context. In fact, that is what led me to pick one of the fonts that we're using today, this Espiritu. When you click in here, you can kind of see all the different options, and I like that this one had a lot of variations. It kind of is like a mini font pack for you with like, got a script font, we've got some like cool condensed fonts here, lots of different options. So we're going to play with this one as one of our fonts today. So I'm going to hop back over to Illustrator, and now we're actually going to start to put some type down. I'm going to click on the the type tool here. I'm just going to click on my artboard to make some point text. It's going to be really, really tiny, so to make it easier for you to see, I'm going to go up to my character options in the control bar and just bring that up to 72 so you can see what we've got going on. I've got my type selected, so I can just go ahead and start typing out our first word, which is going to be, I think it's going to be love, because, you know, it's a Valentine's Day, so let's go with love. And I'm going to scale this up a little bit more still by going to my selection tool, hovering over the corner here. I'll get this little option to scale, and I'm going to hold down shift to keep it constrained. If you're not holding down shift, you're going to get some weird stuff, which you maybe want, but for today I want to keep it kind of constrained as we scale it up. Alright, and now we need a second phrase here. I'm scrolling up in our chat. If you, there's a lot of people hopping into our chat today. If you're joining us on Behance or on YouTube every day at 9:30 a.m. Pacific, you can chat in our live chat, ask questions. Let me know if you got any fun plans for the holiday. Cody Bear says LOVE. Alright, I think I'm going to go ahead and pick one for us, so I'm just going to hit my point text again, and I'm going to type out yourself, because I think that is the most important message for today. Love yourself. We're going to grab that scale and scale it up a little bit more. So now we've got our text in here. Let's go and apply our fonts. Let's click on our first one here, and we'll go to E. I'm just going to click on the character panel right next to where we picked the size, and start to type out our text, ESPIR. So we've got that one. We'll pick the script font maybe for this first one for love. And, ooh, Pixie is saying passion. Pixie in the chat. Nice to see you. So we've got love here. I am going to maybe see what kind of options we have. Script fonts sometimes will have alt characters. So if you double click into your text and you kind of highlight the letters, you can see you'll get these little boxes underneath that lets you kind of pick these really cool accents that you can add onto the different letters. I'm going to actually go with, let's look at what's under E here and see if we can find something. I have a particular effect I want to use on this today, and so I want to pick a, let's go with, let's pick a, there we go, a swoosh kind of underneath. Alright, so now that looks pretty good. Let's pick another font for our second line here. I don't want to go with all script. I think script can be a little bit much sometimes. So I'm going to pick another font I chose, which is this Karake or Sarake. It's kind of like a round font, which I think will work really nicely with our chalky candy heart texture. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick this extra bold here. And I'm going to just drag to select both of my lines of point text and just click on that material in the materials tab, and it's going to apply it to our textures. So, or apply it to our text. The texture is applied to our text. Alright, so in my material settings, for this one in particular, I don't have a ton of options. This repeat will let me make my texture repeat more or less, so it'll make that texture a little bit smaller. If you were working with a texture that was really, really strong and high contrast, you could decrease or increase how large that texture appears. I'm not going to worry about the parameters too much for this one, but we do need to make some adjustments in our object tab so we can kind of see what's going on here. Since I don't have any rotation applied, we're not really seeing anything right now. And you can kind of reference your little 3D widget over here when working with this kind of center rotation widget with the 3D object panel. But I'm just going to pull it up using the freeform. I'm just going to adjust it up a little bit to the upper left. I think that kind of adds a nice positive vibe to have the text kind of extrude down. So I'll show you what I mean by that. We've got extrude selected. And when I just bring this depth up, you're going to see that the letters are going to be kind of at the top with that long extrude down. So now we've got our extrude, we've got our texture applied. Let's have some fun with this now. Let's kind of make this look more like candy hearts and all that lovely stuff. So I'm going to select this bottom text, and for this bottom text, I'm going to use a bevel. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to turn on a bevel, and already the first one looks pretty good. It kind of gives it that hard-edged candy look. But we could play with some other ones. I don't think round is really what I want to go with, although that kind of looks like bubblegum. I'm going to go with this classic outline because I really, really like how that looks like the kind of raised edges that you get on candy hearts. You can kind of change how strong it is. We could actually add a couple by repeating it if we wanted to. And then we could change the height as well, making it a little bit taller. So maybe we'll do, I don't know. Let's just leave it with 1 for now. And then for the top, we're going to add this really cool effect that I think works really nicely with a script font in particular. And that's going to be this twist. So underneath the depth for our extrude, we've got a twist here. And I'm just going to pull that up. You're going to see that's going to make this sort of like, it reminds me of stretched taffy, which I think kind of works with the candy look that we're going for. You can also adjust the second parameter down here, this taper, if you wanted to make this kind of like pulled in a little bit tighter. And that kind of gives it this sort of like, almost like braided with the way that the two like letters of the script text kind of swirl together. I don't know, I find this to be pretty fun to play with, especially for this kind of style of design. Alright, so now we've got some text in there. I'm just going to drag to select both of these and scale them up a lot to fill our kind of canvas a bit more. Our artboard here. We're going to add a background to this, a simple background. You can continue to play with these and add some additional things. Maybe like a little candy heart down here would be really cute. But I'm going to grab the rectangle tool, and I've got a bleed on this today. You can see that's that line over there, the red line. That means that anything that I extend to this bleed, it allows me to make something that's going to print edge to edge. So I'm going to extend my background to this bleed because the artboard is actually going to be where my print gets trimmed. So it gives me a little bit of a safe area if my design prints and like shifts a little bit on print. You can adjust that under your document settings. You can even turn it off if you set the bleed to 0. So if you don't want to deal with that, you can just turn it off. It won't export with your file. Everything that exports with your file will just be inside of this artboard. So I'm just going to drag out a rectangle. I've got smart guides on, which are really helping me. You can see those magenta lines. They're under view. Smart guides, I pretty much always have them checked on because I just find it easy for me to align things. Then I'm going to right click and choose arrange and send to back. So our background is going to be in the background. And I'm going to adjust the color here since I don't really want black for this particular design. I'm going to double click into my color picker and we'll just kind of make this a light pink. I don't really, nothing like too crazy today with this one. Maybe something like that. There we go. And we're going to do one more thing with this design, and then I'm going to try to work on a second style design here. We're going to go Command-C and Command-F to copy and paste in front. We're going to make a copy of that background. I'm going to right-click. I'm going to choose Arrange, and I'm going to bring this copy to the front. And now we're going to play with some effects. So we can change a question that gets asked a lot is like, how can I add a grain texture, kind of grain look to everything? I'm going to show you a really easy way to do that and give it kind of like a vintage feel. So I'm going to change my fill color here back to white. I can just select white in my swatches panel. And then we're going to go up to, we're going to choose Effect. We're going to scroll down to Texture. And we're going to pick Grain. And it's probably going to come up with the one I already chose here today, Stippled. But by default, it's going to show regular. And regular's got all these kind of colors mixed in and everything like that. It's not really what I want. I want to use just black and white. So to do that, I'm going to switch from regular, which has color, and I'm going to switch it to stippled, which is going to give me just these black dots to work with. And I can adjust this intensity slider. This is really the only one you need to worry about for today. So you could add less texture, you could add more texture, depending on like your preference. You can also go in here and edit this after the fact. I'm going to hit OK. If you wanted to adjust that texture in the appearance panel, you can just click in here and you can kind of play with it. So we've got our texture over top, and you're like, well, but now it's hiding my image. Like, that's not really what I want, right? So to keep things simple, for today, we can go into the transparency window, which is also under view and transparent, or window and transparency. Pretty much any panel that I go to today is going to be in the window. All your panels are in here. So if you're ever like, where's that panel that you're working with, Jack? It's probably in here. So once I've got this transparency window open, I'm going to change to a blending mode. Now, the blending mode window, I think a lot of people just tend to go in here and start picking things, but it's actually broken down into sections. So this first section here is going to be darken blending mode. So anything you apply from this top section is going to darken what's below it. And then down here we've got lightening ones. So it's going to make it lighter. I don't think we really want a lighter effect today because it's already a pretty light design. So I'm going to go ahead and pick color burn. That's going to be a darken, and that's going to kind of darken the overall look. It's a little bit harsh right now. So I am going to kind of like decrease the opacity on this. You can see it's like the next one over. And sometimes when you do this, it'll actually like take a minute to get caught up. If that happens, you can actually open up your layers panel. I'll pull it out for you. So I'm just going to click on this little arrow, and I'm just going to hide and then show it again, and it'll bring it back. So it's just kind of like a little, I don't know, technical thing that I've run into before. It just kind of takes a minute sometimes to load my texture. Alright, this looks really cool, but I do want to make sure that we have time to hop over and make another design. So we've kind of, our first design was more Enid, now we're going to make something that's a little bit more Wednesday. I'm going to do that by just copying my artboard. I'm going to go over here and click on my artboard tool, boop, and I'm going to hit Command-C and Command-V to copy and paste my artboard with everything on it. As long as you've got this little option up here turned on, which is Move Copy Artwork with Artboard, that's going to keep your artwork with your artboard, right? Bring that up a little bit. Now I'm just going to switch back to my selection tool, and let's click on in our layers window, I'm actually going to turn off that top texture. It's just going to make it easier for me to work with for the time being. And then we're going to click on the background, and we're going to change this to a gradient. So I'm going to go over my gradient panel, and I'm going to click on, it's just going to apply a black to white gradient. If you don't see a black to white gradient, make sure you go in here, this little window here, and you can find it just by clicking there. We're going to change this to a radial gradient, because a radial gradient kind of like emphasizes our text. We could do the same thing over here if you wanted to. I'm just going to drag this center point here. So in the gradient slider, there's this little midpoint, and that lets you change how the transition happens between your two colors. So if we drag it, more towards black, we're going to have more white showing, right? If we drag it the other way, we're going to kind of decrease it, and it's going to make it a little bit darker. It's going to get rid of some of that white. So now we've got our background set up, we need to change our text. I'm going to click on my little love text up here, and I don't think we need to have our twist anymore, so I'm going to drop that down to 0. I'm going to bring my taper back up to 100 so we get that look again. Then I'm going to switch to my yourself text, and I'm going to remove the bevel. So now we're basically just starting with our text as it was, right? Zoom in a little bit. Let's change what this one says. This one, we're going to go up here. I'm going to double click on my text, and I can type out new text, and it's going to keep the effects live, right? So I can type out Cupid. And then for this bottom text, I'm going to double click in here, and I'm going to type in not today, Cupid. And we're going to rearrange these so that Cupid is on the bottom now. Whoop. And then we're going to bring this up to the top here, kind of bring everything together. And then I'm going to grab my Cupid text in my layers panel. I can just click on it, and I'm going to bring it so that it's on top of my not today, so it comes kind of forward, right? We can change this font. I don't think the bubbly font works, so I'm going to change this to my Spirit to condensed. Zoom out a little bit, and let's add a little bit of a like movement. I'm gonna add a little bit of a wave to this because I think we've got some movement over here. Let's have a little bit of movement over here. I don't think that the twirl is the right vibe though, so you can actually add effects along with your 3D effects, kind of stacking them. You could use like if you wanted to use a roughen would be cool with this. I'm going to use a warp down here. So these warp effects, you can pick one of these. I'm going to pick flag. And you can see that that's going to create like a wavy look to my text. You can kind of adjust this bend here to change where it starts and ends. I'm going to go into the negative values. So you can see that that's going to kind of like arch over my C. And I'm going to hit OK. Alright, so the pink is not doing it for this design, so we're going to have to change this with something else. I did give you a texture you could work with, but we can also explore textures on the Substance site. So down here at the bottom, you can see find more materials on Substance 3D Assets, as well as the Community Assets 2 options. The Community Assets one has this little character, little avatar in front of it, person. I'm going to click on the first one there. It's going to pull up the Substance site. You can see I downloaded this one already. But I'm going to go to all assets here, and then I'm going to go to free assets, and you've got a whole bunch of stuff in here that you can download for free and import into Illustrator, these SBSAR materials. I've already got one in mind, so I'm going to type it in, steel polished, and it's going to pull it up for you. You want to use the same one that I'm working with, but there's a whole bunch of like these steel textures you can experiment with. Back in Illustrator, you can use the same method to import it. I've already got it pulled in, so I'm just going to select both of my point text here, holding down Shift and clicking on each of them, and I'm going to scroll up to where I have it here in my menu. There it is, steel polished. And it's going to look a little crazy. It does have a lot of parameters to it. If we scroll in here, a lot of these ones at the top are going to be they're going to be related to the texture, and I don't actually want any texture here because it's a little bit it's not really the look I'm going for. I want more of a chrome look. You could feel free to kind of pick any texture that you want and adjust the parameters. But up here, like steel color variation, I don't think I want any color variation in this. I want it to be just chrome, no irregularities. I'm going to bring all those values down. Bringing them down is going to decrease, bringing them up is going to increase. This roughness setting relates to like how metallic something kind of looks. So the roughness is going to like make it look less metallic if we increase that, so we don't want that. We don't want any dirt, no oxidation, etc. So now it's already starting to kind of look more chrome. One thing that you can do to kind of help yourself see these chrome effects really well is turn on ray tracing, but make sure you save first because the ray tracing is really, really strong. It will like, your computer's jet engines will turn on, so save first. It could take a little while for it to load. I'm gonna tap it so we can just kind of see what's going on here. We can see our effect. All right, so now we can see it a little bit with a little bit better lighting. I'm gonna go into the lighting tab, and I think that a diffuse light is gonna work better for this since it's gonna be able to see that highlight a little bit stronger, right? We would go in and we would apply the same settings to our Cupid text, sometimes with a metallic text or a metallic texture. I like to put a bevel on it. It just kind of helps that metallic highlight come through a little bit stronger on the edge of the letters. You can already see that with our outline, classic outline, it's already got a little bit of that kind of like edge coming through. I'm going to change it to around. It's going to take a minute. You can see now that we can kind of see a little bit more of that like metallic look coming through on that texture. We could do the same thing with Cupid. I'm going to just go quickly and pull down those qualities here that I don't want to have. Change my lighting and turn on the ray tracing. There we go. We got two different designs in here. One thing you're going to want to make sure you do before you export is turn back on in your layers panel that texture so we can get that kind of super cool vintagey texture on both of our posters. And then once you're ready to save these out, you feel like you're in a good spot with these, you're going to go up to File, and we're going to choose Export, Export for Screens. We're going to save these out. You can make sure you got both of your artboards checked on, choose where you want to have them saved to, and hit Export Artboard. Then you can switch over to our Discord. You can find the link to our Discord in the description right below this video. Again, in the Daily Creative Challenge channel or category, the DCC feedback channel, this is where you can post your work. We've got some of the fruit from yesterday's 3D icon challenge. We've got some Valentine's Day stuff in here. Once you are ready to upload, all you have to do is navigate to where those files exported, and you can just drag them straight into that little message box there and say like, challenge 2, what do you think? And everybody in the Discord can, you can get some feedback from our mentors and check out what everybody's kind of working on in the Discord. So there you go. All right. So, thank you so much for joining me today for this typography challenge in Illustrator. We went over materials, we went over combining effects with 3D effects, and we went over materials. We made two different designs. Like I said, one Enid, one more Wednesday, one a little bit more Valentine's, one a little anti-Valentine's. We're live every day at 9:30 a.m. Pacific time at behance.net/Adobe Live and on YouTube. But stay here, there's more great live streams after me. We've got a 3D bootcamp all this week, right after me, so stay tuned for that if you want to see more 3D content. That's going to be it, though. Bye, everyone!